Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this Tuesday, May 24th in the Locker Room. I'm Alan Locher. Actor Glenn Scarpelli is best known for his role of Alex on the long-running hit CBS primetime series One Day at a Time. He is a native New Yorker who got his first break on Broadway at age 8 in Golda, starring Anne Bancroft, and his next stint on Broadway was at age 12 in Richard III, opposite Al Pacino. Glenn's favorite film role was playing Audrey Hepburn's son in the film in the Peter Bogdanovich film They All Laughed, also starring John Ritter. He appeared in the 1980s Steven Spielberg anthology series Amazing Stories and toured on stage in Brighton Beach Memoirs. He also guest starred on 3 episodes of one of my favorites, The Love Boat, and co-hosted an NBC daytime series Fantasy alongside Leslie Uggams and Peter Marshall. Glenn came out publicly in 2004 and has been an advocate for LGBTQ rights. He also donates much of his time to HIV and AIDS charities. One of the organizations that is nearest and dearest to his heart is the Southwest Center for HIV/AIDS. For the past several decades, he has been a resident of Sedona, Arizona, and is the owner of Channel 18 Sedona Now TV. He has been nominated for 4 Rocky Mountain Emmys for his directorial work on Sedona Now, and the station just celebrated its 20th anniversary. I am so excited to meet Glenn and have him here today. Please welcome to the Locker Room, Glenn Scarpelli. Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Alan. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much, my friend.
You are so welcome. I'm thrilled to meet you. You know, you and I are the same age, but it's funny to say I grew up on One Day at a Time.
It's ironic. I grew up on One Day at a Time too. So
yeah,
there you
we
go.
both do.
We already have so much in common.
Yeah, we do. Congratulations, 20 years at Channel 18 in Sedona, Arizona.
Yeah.
What brought you to Arizona and what prompted your decision to own a TV station?
Well, you know, getting to Arizona was quite a feat. You know, if you would have told me when I was a kid that I was going to live in a town the size of Sedona, Arizona, I would have never believed you. You know, I grew up in New York City and then lived in Los Angeles, of course, doing One Day at a Time. And then I went back to New York to NYU Film. But I had my first partner, who I call husband, even though, you know, marriage equality was but a dream back in the 80s. But
I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I would have married him had we been allowed to. So I call him my husband. But he passed away at a very young age from HIV/AIDS. He was 36. I was 25 when he passed away. And
very sorry to hear that.
Thank you. I mean, that's like, people ask me, like, what defines you in your life? Like, all that childhood stuff that we're going to talk about, which is so fun and a big part of my life, of course. None of that defined me like caretaking for Gary. And I'm here to be the person I am today, talking to you, Alan, because of that experience. And afterwards, you know, there was a lot of hate and discrimination towards our community in the 80s, a lot of stigma around HIV/AIDS. And, you know, I was angry, you know, at life, at God, for taking him, for feeling cheated, and, you know, all that stuff. So I basically went on a bit of a spiritual walkabout in my life. I moved to Belize, Central America for a little while. And yeah, I lived off the grid. I fished for my food. Like, I just went to bare necessities. I was like, I don't know what this thing called life is all about. Because I left acting to be with him. I knew I couldn't be out and gay and an actor in 1986. There was just no way. And I wanted to live an authentic, true life for myself. I wanted to find love and happiness. So I chose that. And then he left. Then he was taken. So I went through a lot of turmoil, struggle, emotional, you know, lessons. And one thing led to another, and I was led to Sedona, Arizona. So really, Sedona was a spiritual quest that I, you know, had this wonderful opportunity to start a new life, to be true to myself, to really find peace. with that situation, with myself, with life, with my relationship with my creator, all that stuff became clear in, that chapter that started in Sedona for me in 1992. It's going to be 30 years this year. Oh my gosh. And he'll be gone 30 years. He also died in 92. So I know.
I mean,
And
it's, I said, you and I are the same age, and I am very lucky that I, missed having to say goodbye to any of my friends or,
wow.
a loved one.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, picking up the pieces after that.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I did not get HIV. And it was ironic because there was a part of me that felt guilty about that, honestly. And I had to process that even. Wow. Why him?
Survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt. So I went through all of it, all that stuff. But I really was able to recognize that I was on a spiritual journey. We're spiritual beings with, human experiences. That's what we're here to do. I believe that Earth is the learning planet, and nobody came here with any answers. None of us have any answers. I've actually stopped asking why about things in life, and I just look at the opportunity to grow from my experiences. And I think that's all we can do, is look at how can I now grow from this? What can I learn about myself? What can I learn about the natural state of the universe through whatever experiences might be going on? So, that's really what did it. And I'm pulling into Sedona in 1992, and I'm passing this beautiful rock, which is called Bell Rock. It's actually a vortex. I don't know if you know about that whole thing with the vortexes in Sedona, but they're energy spots. And I was passing Bell Rock, and I got chills from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes. And I was like, oh, I think I just came home. And I just felt called. So I didn't know what I was going to do in Sedona. I was like, I'm moving where to do what? What am I, crazy? And I wound up moving, there and making the move. I mean, it took a little time. It wasn't that weekend, but, within that year, I jumped on the Sedona bandwagon. And the opportunity came. I got, back in those days, there was no Wi-Fi. There was none of this going on. It was just television. And there were only 35 channels on our cable provider. And I called the cable provider and said, hey, listen, I'm only getting 34 channels. I don't know what's going on. Channel 18 is a blue screen. And they said, oh, channel 18. Yes, that's available. Would you like to make an offer? And I was like, oh, you mean to own my own television station? And they said, yeah. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
Let me give that some thought. So I think there was a predestined fate that was about to happen, and why I was there, and I went for it. So yeah, so that's how it all happened.
Good for you. Having never owned a TV station, what do you tackle first?
Well, first of all, I was like, okay, I got the airwaves. What am I going to do with them now? What am I putting on the station? I was like, I had no idea. And at that point, I had taken my godchildren to Disneyland, and I checked into the Disneyland hotel, and there was this television station that was all about the things to see and do in Disney and give you all these ideas. Well, Sedona, if you haven't been, Alan, I haven't asked you if you've been, but if you haven't, you have to come visit me, because, well,
I have not.
That will change, because
I'm
hooked up, dude. So come out and visit. That's for sure.
I would love to get to. Yeah, I was in Phoenix briefly, a long time ago.
Well, Phoenix is very different. We're in the mountains. We're at almost 5,000 foot elevation. We have 4 seasons. We get snow in the winter. It's really, really heavenly. And the fall is beautiful. Everything turns orange and red, all the trees, and we have a lot of trees. So, so Sedona was, a tourist community. So I figured, well, maybe there's a fit here for a station like that I saw at Disneyland that could fit the Sedona market and really be a service to all those businesses. And it turned out to be true. I found my niche and it started to work. You know, Sedona is a town, there's only 10,000 of us that live there, but 4 million people visit us every year. So,
Wow.
yeah, so it's kind of a big deal. So tourism, 78% of Sedona revenue is strictly tourism. So that's what I jumped on. I jumped on the bandwagon of let's entertain the visitors and give them ideas of what things to see and do. And that's what the station is.
That's amazing. What are you most proud of in the 20 years?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I'm proud of the work that we've pumped out. You know, I went there with a whole bunch of, you know, Hollywood experience under my belt. And I certainly applied everything I ever learned in life to that project, which is always a wonderful feeling, you know, when you can actually take all your stuff and apply it. So I want to say, you know, the quality of the work, I think, is the thing I'm most proud of. When you watch the station, it doesn't look like just a local station. Like I think we have a certain bar that we meet, and I'm proud of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you're hosting a show called Traveler TV that airs on ABC stations throughout the Southwest, correct?
Yeah, so we're Channel 18 up in Sedona, and when we turned 18 years old, it was 18 on 18. I decided I wanted to really expand my market to other parts of the state, specifically Phoenix, because the amount of people that visit from Phoenix, it's our number one, what they call feeder market. People that come to visit are mostly from 63% of our visitors are strictly Phoenix. So I wanted to find an outlet in the area. So I went and met with all the stations, and my connection was really with ABC 15 in Phoenix. And I started producing these segments and hosting these segments about our area in northern Arizona, on their morning show, hit morning show called Sonoran Living, which is on at 9 a.m. right between Good Morning America and The View. ABC in Phoenix runs this show. And our segment started to really take off, proven to be very successful, both for our clients and for the station. And now I do these in other markets because Scripps Media, who owns ABC, approached me and said, hey, if you can do this in Phoenix, can we do it other places? I'm like, heck yeah. So now the segments are called Traveler TV. Like this week, I'm seen in Tucson, San Diego, Las Vegas, Phoenix. Sometimes we're seen in Denver, but we have markets all over the country that are available to us. So that's how I've grown the company recently.
Congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Now let's go back to New York City, Staten Island.
Okay.
What do you remember about growing up there?
And where am I talking to you right now?
I'm in New Jersey, but I mean I've worked in the city since 1986. Long time.
Gotcha, but you're Jersey right now.
I'm a Jersey boy. I was born and raised, but I've worked in the city, you know, since '86.
Because you know Staten Island might as well be Jersey.
And sometimes we go through Jersey from I live in a town called Scotch Plains, New Jersey. So sometimes they make us go through Staten Island when we're going, you know, certain areas. The traffic's better going through Staten Island. So.
And that's not saying much because the traffic through Staten Island is rough.
I know. It definitely can be. I will absolutely concur there.
Yeah. But I do know that that's a lot. We get a lot of Jersey traffic, especially coming from Brooklyn. They cut through Staten Island. So my mom's still there. I grew up, born and raised in Staten Island. And ever since I was a little kid, I loved show business. Like I freaking loved it. Like I watched all the MGM musicals. I knew Sinatra music. Like I was born in the wrong generation, basically. Like I was into the history of show business, films, theater, like drawn young. And when I was 5 years old, I set foot on stage at PS 39. I went to kindergarten there. And at PS 39, during a little school play that we were doing, I set foot on stage and I was like, I'm home. And yeah. And I loved it. And I begged my parents from that point on, I want to be an actor. And they were like, that's wonderful when you grow up. I'm like, no, I don't want to wait till I grow up. I want to do it now. I want it right now. That's what I want to do today. And then like I wore them. It took about 3 years to wear them down, but I wore them down.
That's
And
incredible. What was it, mom or dad who turned you on to those movies, or were they, did you just turn on the TV and start watching and falling in love?
well, I think it was a little bit of both. My dad really was a huge influence on me. He was a creative. He was actually an artist.
I heard
right,
that. Yeah.
Yes, for Archie Comics. He drew Archie, Betty, Veronica for 47 years. And so
I mean, that's incredible, right?
That is incredible. Now,
incredible.
I didn't really know that growing up, how incredible it was until I got older and I was out in the world and I had my own career and people would be like, oh my gosh, I've been watching your dad and my mother used to watch your dad. Now my kids read the comic books. So I started to get a sense, because when I was little, it was just these characters my dad used to draw. Like I didn't understand the enormity of the reach and the influence that Archie Comics had. So it was really remarkable. But I had a dad that was, he wasn't the guy that was like, go get a real job. You know what I mean? He was a creative. So I was very influenced by him. He definitely opened the doors for me. He was a big movie buff. He used to let me watch all kinds of things I probably shouldn't have at my age. But he used to love to share with me like how like horror movie. He loved horror movies. So he used to love how to share with me how they were made and special effects. And so he let me see really young the magic of movie making. And we watched a lot of television. I was always in love with, all of Norman Lear's shows prior to even being on One Day at a Time. I watched Maude and the Jeffersons and All in the Family and, the Good Times, right? I mean, like that was the 70s, that was our childhood.
150%. Yep.
Yeah. And my other favorite show was the Mary Tyler Moore Show growing up. I absolutely loved Mary and Rhoda. So, I was into it. Let's just say that. And I got the support from my parents. So finally, at about age 8, mom was like, okay, like I wore them down. So I met a manager in New York City, a theatrical manager for children, who a friend of mine in Staten Island was doing commercials. Well, that was another thing. I was at her house one time, Ellen, and she got she did a toy commercial and she got a free toy sent to her house. And I was like, that's my kind of business.
The free items. Oh, absolutely.
I'm like, there's perks on top of it all. There's free toys in this. What are we talking about here, people? Why am I not in this yet? So that's how it happened. So I met the manager, and another quick little story about that experience was she wanted to change my name, this manager, because she thought Scarpelli was too ethnic. So she said, what's your middle name? And I said, Christopher. She goes, from now on, you're Glenn Christopher. And I said, I don't like that. I said, I'm Glenn Scarpelli. And she said, well, it's a little too Italian. I said, well, I am Italian. And she goes, well, I don't think I'm 8 years old. Okay. This is the precocious 8-year-old in me. Right. And then she said, well, I don't think you're going to work much. I said, tell that to Frank Sinatra. And she was like, I don't know if I could argue with that. And she let me keep my name, and it worked out all right.
Frankie was my mother's absolute love. She loved him. Yeah, loved Frank Sinatra.
Who didn't love Frank Sinatra?
Is it true your dad featured you in an Archie comic?
Yeah. So when I got on One Day at a Time, the powers that be at Archie Comics, I had been in a lot of teen magazines and had a large teen following. And one of the things that Archie always tries to do is bring, even though it's set technically in the 50s, they really keep up with keeping it as current as possible for younger generations to relate. So they were in one of those stages where they really wanted to make sure they were capturing the teens of that day. So they approached Dad and said, why don't we have Glenn in the magazine and you could draw it? And Dan DiCarlo is one of their also legendary illustrators. And I remember the first time I was on the cover of Archie Comics, Dan actually is the one that drew me. And I'm just so thrilled because he and my dad were such close friends. And I just look at the body of work that this man has done. So being drawn by Dan DiCarlo was kind of a big deal to me. So that
That's
whole
amazing.
experience was wonderful. Yeah, and Dad and I got to collaborate. Like, we'd never worked together before. So that was kind of cool. It was very cool.
I love that. And you made your Broadway debut at 10 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, that, you literally, had the agent at 8, and 2 years later, you're stepping foot on a Broadway stage.
I had a lot of good fortune, definitely. And I'm so grateful for the life that I had and that was given to me. You work hard. It's a lot of work. You sacrifice a lot of things as a child to have it. I knew that going in. I didn't see it as much of a sacrifice because I honestly I just loved it so much. I just loved
it. Sounds like you truly, had that bug from an early age. What do you remember working opposite Ms. Bancroft?
Oh my gosh, Anne Bancroft was so amazing. First of all, we were the only two paisans in a cast full of Jewish people, because it was Golda was the show, the life story of Golda Meir, and Annie and I were the only two Italians. And I played Jewish a lot. I feel there's a part of me that's Jewish, just period. I just feel very, mishpucha. What can I say?
That's very funny, because I am Jewish, and I used to get that I always looked Italian to people.
Well, in New York, Italians and Jews are the same thing. Really. We talk with our hands, we have the family vibe, the eating, everyone talks over each other. Like, we're very similar. We're very similar. So, I mean, look, you and I can totally be related. Look at us.
We really could. Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. So in that scenario, I really loved, and Anne and I had a special connection, I think, because of that. And she really took me under her wing. One of the things I learned so early on, Anne being one of my biggest teachers, was discipline. She was so disciplined. This is a woman who was such a big star at the time, huge star, married to Mel Brooks at the time too. I have some incredible memories of being with her and her husband. And Max, their son, was like 3 years old at the time, and a newborn, baby. And I was part of that chapter for her. But she always came in kind, calm, loving, and prepared. And I was like, okay, I want to do that. I want to be kind, calm, loving, and prepared. And prepared requires a lot of discipline. People don't realize in this profession how much discipline comes along with that. And being a child, I wasn't the one like running around, playing outside. I was sitting in a rehearsal hall watching Anne Bancroft prepare a scene with Arthur Penn, our director, and
there's no better school than that.
And I paid attention, and I was a good boy. Like, I sat there quiet until I was called, until my scenes came up, but I sat there and watched this unfold. So I definitely had wonderful teachers, Annie being, of course, one of them. I recently ran into Mel Brooks with Norman Lear, had a party that Mel Brooks was at, and I had a chance to reconnect with Mel and let him know, how much Annie meant to me. And he basically said, "Kid, please stop talking. I'm going to start crying. Like, please stop talking. I can't right now. I can't do this right now." Because, they were a match made in heaven, truly.
I mean, you really get lucky to have that as your first, Broadway show, because, you've been in the business long enough. Not everybody is the same way,
right.
To be able to learn all of that from somebody as kind, prepared, as you said, doesn't always happen. And that's a real blessing right there, to have that as your,
my entree.
Yeah. Seriously.
And honestly, before that, I booked a TV pilot for CBS starring Ethel Merman. And working with the Merm was absolutely incredible because I was a huge theater buff, theater fan. And like people, when I worked with her, she was like, "Do you even know who I am?" I'm like, "Hello, Annie, get your gun." And I started listing them all. I was like this little twerp, but I was very into it. So like I worked with some of the greats. Like I look back now, I'm like, I can't even believe I had these opportunities. Like
Well,
it was magical.
Your second Broadway show with this gentleman.
Oh yeah, he's a good little actor.
Mr. Al Pacino.
Yes.
Let's get to Al in a second, but when did you know you could sing? When did you start? Were you always, because you were into all musicals, just singing at home, literally?
Yeah. I'm as gay as you can be. I was singing and dancing and I was strutting it. I was acting. I saw it all. So yeah, I knew early on this was all my calling for sure. There was no question. That. Yeah.
Love that.
So
tell me about Al.
So Al Pacino, again, disciplined, like beyond belief. He had a very different type of personality because he was actually very much an introvert, whereas Annie was very out there and like I would go in, she'd hug me every day, and like I played her son, so we had that kind of relationship. But Al was quite the introvert, and he and I had this amazing connection. So one thing that he would do, Alan, like before the show, and this is pretty much more when we got to Broadway, because we did a month in or 2 months in Philadelphia prior to our Broadway run. And he was really into energy. So as he would pass people on his way to the stage, he would just gently put his hand on people to kind of feel their energy and get what he can to work himself up to going out and starting the show. And one time he was passing my dressing room because he didn't take, this is another thing, like he was so understated. Like you would think Al Pacino, big star. He did not see himself as that at all. Like he was really down to earth, and it was all about the art. It was all about the work. And when you look at this man's body of work, you could see that he did truly make that the priority. It's not about how he looked or what was being said about him, He also said, never believe your own PR. That was one of the pieces of advice that he gave me, because never believe your own PR, because he was really an artist. There's a difference between working with, someone who's an artist. He really made the work first. So this energy thing was really important to him. And he didn't take the big dressing room. He had the second dress. The ladies got the big star dressing room downstairs. And he took a tiny little dressing room on the second floor next to mine. And he and I were the only two at the second floor of the Court Theater on 48th Street. So he used to pass my dressing room to start the play. And he would come and touch me, and then he'd touch all these other people. But then he said to me one time, he goes, "Would you be okay if you waited in the wings so that I can actually touch you last?" Because there was something about the innocence of a child and the clarity that children bring us that wasn't skewed with adult stuff, It was just clean and energetically clean and joyous, I think is what he felt, because I was joyous to be there. So I had this beautiful opportunity to stand in the wings, and he'd put his hand on my shoulder. The lights would dim in the audience. The lights would come up on stage, and he would enter and start, "Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York." And he would start Richard III. And I got to be there opening night. I'm getting chills actually just telling you this story right now, Alan, because I just go back thinking about those moments with such gratitude. Like I like to see that perspective of Al Pacino doing his thing, was quite remarkable. And I learned so much from it. Oh my gosh. I took those lessons for the rest of my life.
I can only imagine. I mean, being able to watch people, like that, and then Al, and then getting the role of Alex Handress, working with that incredible cast. What do you remember about the audition for One Day at a Time?
Okay, so the audition happened in New York during an actor strike, and it wasn't even allowed to be an audition. It was just like kind of a meeting. And I got the audition because of Valerie Bertinelli suggested me. I had met her prior, and she came to see Richard III and went nuts for the show. I brought her backstage to introduce her to Al Pacino, and she was so excited and so nervous. And she came, as we were walking out of the Court Theater that night, she said, "Glenn, if there's anything I could ever do for you, just ask." So cut to 3 years later, my mom's reading the TV guide in the backyard in Staten Island, and it's this article about how Mackenzie, due to her very public drug abuse, was being let go from the show. And at the end, it just said just a little bit, Anne Romano's going to have a boyfriend and he's going to have a 14-year-old son. And that's the direction the show is going. And I was like, a 14-year-old son? I was like just about to turn 13 at the time, or I was 13, just about to turn 14. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I call Valerie, we tracked her down doing a TV movie in San Francisco. And she was like, oh my gosh, Glenn, you'd be fantastic. I just talked to Bonnie today. Bonnie had casting approval. And he said, Bonnie wants someone with theater credits. Because when you're doing a Norman Lear sitcom, it's theater. You know, he did it like a play. Like once we had our things going on, we very rarely stopped. Like it was, you know,
although theater. I will tell you a secret. Although I was very gay, Valerie sat on my wall at home. I had a poster of Valerie Burr. I don't know if I was trying to divert attention, but I did love Valerie very much.
Everyone loved Valerie. Me too.
Still huge fan.
I'm so glad. I love her in
Cleveland with her and that crew was incredible.
Right? Oh my gosh. I loved that show so much. I visited her on the set so many times because I just wanted to be around Betty White as much as I humanly could. So it was thanks to...
So jealous of that. Well, so just talking of Betty, I grew up watching Guiding Light, the soap opera, and worked there for 13 years. And I did not realize until very late that Betty was a huge Guiding Light fan. If I had known that when I was running PR, I would have begged to have her on the show.
On the show, of course. Oh my gosh. That would have been incredible.
Who doesn't love them some Betty White?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, my whole
that is a great story. I might have known it because I did grow up, like I said, watching One Day and loved One Day, loved you all on One Day. But that is a great story of how you got the part.
Yeah. So it came with Valerie's blessing. So that didn't hurt. But when I ever talked to her about this, she's like, honey, you still auditioned, you still got yourself the part. I'm like, yeah, but having a blessing from Valerie Bertinelli certainly couldn't hurt. So, you know, I always say thank you to her for that.
Opening a door doesn't, she opened a door, but you had to get it.
Yeah. Exactly. But, you know, in life, it's who you know. You know, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. So that was certainly a step up for me. And then I had the opportunity, really, once I got on the show, to really get close with Val on a whole nother level. And then at that point, she had just started dating Ed. And my friendship with Eddie Van Halen, to this day, I will treasure it for the rest of my life. Like, he was just so wonderful. And I was such a huge Van Halen fan. But then he became so much more, like, because Val really became like a sister to me. Mackenzie's like a sister to me. And Eddie was like a brother-in-law. I mean, that's what it felt like, you know, and he was also there all the time. And I would go on the road with them sometimes and see them in different cities on hiatus week. Every time hiatus was coming up, I'd say to Val, so where's the band going to be? And then she'd be like, well, St. Louis or Philadelphia. And I'm like, okay. So I have, Valerie, if you're watching, thank you for all the free Van Halen tickets you gave me over the years.
That is the best gift any teenager could ever ask for.
I kind of thought so too. Yeah, I kind of thought.
What's the first thing that comes to mind when I say their names? Bonnie Franklin.
Bonnie Franklin, I miss so much, first of all. We were so incredibly close till the day she passed. I would like sometimes even watch her dogs when she would travel. I've spent nights at her house just hanging out, and even weekends. Like we were that close. Her two stepchildren, who she called her children, she never said step because she's like, they're my kids, are two of my dearest friends to this day. So I'm very close with the whole family, the Franklin Minoff family. And Bon was one of those people that was really like, if you had something going on in your life, she was great counsel. Like if something was happening, I'd like, let me call Bon and see what her take is on it, on this. And she always had such clarity. She was always, she's a very smart lady, incredibly smart, but had so much love in her heart that she had just a really good sense of, you know, if you needed advice, Bon was my go-to. So I miss that most, really, in having her gone. And I still talk to her all the time. I'm like, what do you think of this, Bon? What do you think of that? Because that's who she was for me. She was counsel. Yeah. And I think she was for a lot of us that way. She was definitely the mama bird.
I was just going to say, yeah, mother figure. Pat Harrington?
Pat Harrington brings me so much joy my whole life. You know, I again, we all stayed very friendly for years and years and years. So we all did the TV Land Awards back in 2012. He passed away, I think, maybe a year and a half later. Bonnie passed away almost a year to the day. So that was the last time we were ever all together. But I stayed in touch with them. In fact, I just went to lunch with his wife and kids and stayed, you know, in touch with the Harrington family. But Pat was fucking, can I say that on this? Was, but he was hilarious.
he really was. I loved Snyder.
Oh my gosh, this man made us laugh from the moment we got to work to the moment we ended. There was so much joy on the set of One Day at a Time. It was one of those shows. We didn't have a lot of drama. Now, there was some prior to me getting there because Mackenzie went through her struggles, but, you know, she got her act together and she came back to the show and we became lifelong friends. And there was laughter from the moment we'd show up in the morning to the moment we left. Truly, I can't believe how much we laughed. And most of that was thanks to Pat. He was on, he was funny, he knew it. He had his shtick, but then he would come up with stuff like out of the blue. And he was a mentor to me. You know, he was a mentor on comedy. He would often pull me aside and give me direction that the director wasn't even giving me. He's like, you can make something in this moment, kid. Do this. Let's do a little shtick. Let's find you some shtick. And like, he would very much mentor me specifically about comedy. And I listened and I hung on to every word because this is a man who knew what he was talking about. And, you know, he was loving and wonderful to all of us.
Is the show on anywhere that we can watch it?
Yeah, it's on Antenna TV every day. I think it's on twice a day on Antenna TV. It's also on Me TV, I believe. One of those.
I need to DVR that if it's on Me. I don't know that I get Antenna. Oh my God, because I
know for sure. I know for sure it's Antenna. I think people around the country, I mean, I hear from people every day saying, I just watched this episode. I just watched that episode.
I totally need to find it.
Yeah, and we also, the entire series is on box set through Shout. So you could find that, you know, at your friendly online stores.
I was going to say you're friendly online. It's no brick and mortar anymore for those.
No, exactly. You buy it online, Amazon and eBay. I'm sure you can find it on eBay, but it's the Shout Factory is the company that did it. And it's all 9 seasons. And the bonus material on that is Mackenzie and I in a sit-down interview, which was so much fun to film. And I treasure that because we really had a chance to kind of really like reminisce together. And although we see each other all the time, I mean, we text and talk weekly, but to actually sit there and just talk about memories from One Day at a Time, we really haven't done that in a very long time. So if you buy the box set or get it, check out the bonus material because it was very special.
I love that. I forget that it was 9 seasons, which is so incredible. What are you most proud of with One Day? I mean, I guess, you know, thinking about it, here we are, we're still talking about it, right?
Yeah, well, all of Norman's shows stand the test of time. My
Really
boyfriend
do.
Johnny and I this year, we both had hernia surgeries this year. So we nursed each other through hernia. We called them hymnias personally. So we had matching him and him hymnia surgeries this year. And during our recuperation, we binge watched the entire series of the Mary Tyler Moore Show and the entire series of All in the Family. And when you look at these shows, and talking specifically about Norman with All in the Family, they stand the test of time. Like, so much of the content, the situation comedy, the situations within those are things people are still talking about in this country. Like, there was an episode on One Day at a Time where originally it was called Schneider and Alex. I think it wound up being called Catcher in the Mud, if all you folks want to check this out. But it's the one where Schneider thinks I don't have enough male influence in my life, so he takes me to a mud wrestling match at the lodge, and he also teaches me how to handle a gun. Pat wrote the episode. He actually called my parents in Staten Island that hiatus and said, "I'm going to write this scene. Are you okay with it?" So just to share with you the kind of integrity that Pat Harrington had, right, to check with my parents, I thought was very, very sweet. They did too. So the scene is him teaching me how to handle this gun, and then who walks in the door? Anne Romano, and we're pointing a gun at her, and she goes ballistic. So she was all about, I don't believe in guns. I don't believe in guns. And he was very, I believe in guns and being able to protect. Like, this whole guns conversation that was had on that show is really still being discussed
every day
in our country.
Day. Yes.
So we've come far, but we haven't come too far. And a lot of what Norman really woke our society up to, because really that's what the purpose of his shows were. We laughed along, but it also brought awareness for where we were as a country. And One Day at a Time is a perfect example of that. And this scene in particular, I just saw it recently, which is why I'm bringing it up.
Oh, I'm
totally
like, oh my gosh, my
gosh,
DVR. I am so setting my DVR because I seriously have not.
Awesome.
Yeah, because it must be on at a time that I don't, because I usually watch like those channels late at night or early in the morning, but I haven't caught One Day because I would watch it all the time.
Try it. I hope it's on me. I know Love Boat. I get people sending me pictures off their television when my Love Boat's rerun, so that's kind of
fun. Yeah, that's incredible. I have to tell you, I fell in love with the remake.
Oh, me too, dude. I really thought
I was so vocal about keeping it on the air because I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, I was so proud of them to handle it the way they did, because it wasn't a reboot. They called it a reimagination of the show, and that's really what it was. Schneider and Alex were the only two that had their original names, but it's the way they handled it, the way they brought it into today. Rita
and
was incredible.
Cast.
Justina was incredible.
Right, but they cast it. That cast was very reminiscent of all of you. It was a beyond talented group of people making us laugh, telling important stories with just such heart and humor. Yeah, and Rita was like, right? Come
on, it's Rita Moreno.
It was to watch every move that woman made during that show at 80, I think, right? She was, yeah.
I think crazy. 88. So I was very fortunate to get a phone call one day from Norman and his team saying, "Would you like to do a cameo?" And it was a cameo. It was one scene, but I was so thrilled. So being on that set, I had to hold back tears the moment I walked on the set because it's similar. And here I am, like, with these incredibly talented people, and we're about to do the reading on Monday morning. And Norman sitting there, like Mackenzie was there, because she was often on the show.
Yeah.
And it was this strange, surreal, like, oh my gosh, can this really be happening? Is this happening right now? And I was just so honored and thrilled to be, with all of them. And I'm just such a big fan of each and every one of them.
Yeah, I wanted that show to survive. I thought we
Nah.
needed that show. We needed the humor. It was, during these last couple of years that have been so crazy. So crazy.
They even did an animated episode that I thought was fantastic.
Oh yeah, totally. I forgot.
But my favorite one is when Alex walked in on Justina masturbating.
Oh
do you remember that one?
Yes. Oh my God, he was scarred. He was scarred. I mean, so would I. Yes.
I would be totally scarred walking in with my mom.
Oh my God.
That Justina is freaking hilarious.
Phenomenal. I mean, they all were phenomenal.
She's one of my favorite people, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful woman and incredibly talented. But the showrunners, Gloria and Mike were unbelievable. Ironically, Mike and Gloria are their names, right? From like you think about All in the Family. When I was like, oh my God, their showrunners' names are Mike and Gloria. How fun! And but they were just incredible to really take what Norman had. And Norman was an executive producer along with Brent Miller. But really, Mike and Gloria were the ones who really ran with it and ran the show. And they did such an incredible job. The quality of those scripts were amazing.
Absolutely agree. Do you still have a dream role you'd love to play?
Gosh, a dream role. I can't say I have a dream role. I mean, my boyfriend and I have a project that we're developing right now that I would love to see get off the ground. So if there's a dream, if I'm putting something out to the universe, that would be lovely.
You need to do that, correct?
Yes, you always have to say yes to the universe. So I physically am saying that would be wonderful. We'll see if that works out. But as far as like a dream role, I feel very content with the way I've expressed myself through that art. And there was a part of me that as I was going through my spiritual growth after Gary died, that really decided to let go of who I thought I was. Because having the passion I did for acting comes with a lot of labels, So I was labeled child actor, like I was in this thing called actor box, of which I removed myself so many years ago. And it was so liberating to do that. It was just so wonderful to say, okay, let me see what else life has to offer. And I discovered so many more parts of myself after that too, because I'm an entrepreneur. I have a sales gene. I have like all these other skills that I would have limited myself because being just the actor. So I'm such a more well-rounded person, even in my own self-belief in myself, to know that I can go out and do, something else successfully. But, I do get my kicks, on camera doing this stuff that I do. So there's still a part of me that loves that. But I don't wake up saying, oh, I wish I could do this role, is my point. Like it's not just who I am. It's a part of me, but it doesn't define me.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said.
Thank
2004, you came out on the VH1 special 100 Greatest Teen Stars.
Yes, I did.
Was that difficult for you, or were you, ready at that time?
Oh, I was ready. I hadn't had an opportunity because, like I said, at that point, the internet wasn't really jamming, and I didn't have this voice where you have followers and you can talk to people, so directly. So I had been living in Sedona for quite a while. Gary had passed, and I was with my second husband, and he was actually my husband. I married him. We shortly after that got divorced, but we were together at that point. And Jude is his name. And we were doing our thing in Sedona, Arizona. And they said, this is like a Where Are They Now? We want to bring cameras out. I'm like, okay, because if you want to see where they are now, this is what I'm doing. So I decided I'm going to come out on your show. So it was 100 Greatest Teen Stars, right? So I begged them to make me number 69. Because I was like, please, it was VH1. I'm like, VH1, come on, have a sense of humor. And they said, no, you were higher on the list. I'm like, but I don't care. I'm coming out on your show. Wouldn't that be funny? So they didn't do it.
Funny.
They wouldn't let me do that. But I did have an opportunity to finally say I'm gay, like publicly. And it was so, there was so much relief and so wonderful. And the reaction from, you know, the community and from most people was incredible. Not all people. You know, it comes with, I always say being gay, well, the one thing LGBTQ shares is this coming out thing. Like, we're very different. Like, gays are different than lesbians and trans. Like, everybody's got their own thing. But the common denominator is we are a type of people that has to say who we are. It's not just there, you know. So the way a straight person is just assumed to be straight. Like, we're not assumed anything.
I have a close family member who feels very strongly, why the F do I need to, you know, come out when straight people don't have to do a damn thing?
Right.
You know,
but it's important for us in this stage to actually declare this.
It is. It's helpful. I mean, look, you know, let's go back to you and I as teenagers. Right. We had nobody to look up to. Nobody. No. I mean, we might have admired many of them, you know, many of the straight men or who we thought were gay, but there was nobody who articulated it for us to look up to.
Paul Lind was in the closet. I mean, come on. Right? I mean, people thought Liberace was straight. I mean, what? Like, women. I mean, Liberace.
For the most part, people thought Rock Hudson was straight until, you know.
Right. And that's more, you know, he wasn't. He did seem straight. Rock Hudson.
You know? Right. He wasn't a Paul Lind or a Liberace. Right.
Exactly.
Who wore it on their
Nelson Riley.
Yeah, wore it on their sleeves or their diamonds.
Yeah.
But had you been true? Had you been out to family and friends before that 2004 moment?
For many years. Yes.
Okay. So
yeah, for many years. I came out pretty much to everybody when Gary got sick. You know, it was unavoidable. And it was just time to, you know, speak my truth. And one of the things I think gives our community a superpower is the opportunity to come out. I call it my superpower because so many people get so concerned what everybody else thinks. And one of the whole point and one of the ways to really show ourselves self-love and self-respect is to not give a flying what other people think, you know? So it's a superpower that we get from this. It's a strength that other people don't understand when you actually have to state who you are, and that is going to be in the face of adversity and you still do it. You know, there's a cachet, a thing that happens to us inside that we take for the rest of our lives with us. I mean, I know, like, and as I get older, I care less and less what people think, but you know, that was my first big
50%.
Right? I don't have time. Like, you pay my bills? No, then shut the f up. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
But you know, for me, it was difficult. You know, it was difficult, but it was definitely, you know, I'm amazed today when I see, you know, teenagers, high school students out living their lives, you know, with authenticity that I couldn't have even imagined at that, you know, same age. And it's just because of all of the doors that were opened along the way.
Yes. And I often try to, because, you know, like you said in the intro, I'm very much I've been on the front lines of defending and raising money for research for HIV/AIDS, of course, because of my story. But so much of that was I try to do a history lesson with the younger generation to let them know where they came from. Like, they can do that in high school now due to the fact that these people, you know, literally died for, you know, the awareness of who we are as a community. And I think it's important for that generation to understand it. But I'm so proud that they can. I'm in awe of these kids who just are like, they don't even come out. Like, they just like,
they don't. Yeah,
No.
I mean, and you know, they just blend in with, you know, other kids in their schools and classes, and I
Yes.
just relish that. I
Yes.
mean, for me, like the TV show Glee was so moving to me or something. Like
Yeah.
I was, you know, I wished you and I had something like that when we were that age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, having grown up in show business, I have to say,
Yeah.
I was not one of those people that was like, I am I alone in the world? Like I know like a lot
Right.
of folks that I talked to that were raised in smaller towns in the Midwest
Mm-hmm.
felt like they would so like the only ones that felt like that. I
Mm.
certainly didn't have that experience. I
Yeah,
knew
you
a lot
definitely
of
probably had more, yeah, more exposure.
a lot more. And in theater specifically, when I would work on Broadway, I knew what gay people were very, very early on. It was always expressed to me and explained to me in a very loving way by my parents. Some men just love other men, some women just love other women. That's how it was explained. So it was not this big deal. I did have challenge coming out to my parents. It was harder for them when it was their son,
Hmm.
and you know it was Italian Catholic Staten Island. It came with its share of
In a
struggle,
different time, not, you
and
know,
in a different
2022.
time.
Yeah, for
Exactly, a
sure.
very different time, late 80s, so or mid 80s. So you know and there was all the HIV AIDS stuff happening, so there
Correct.
was also that fear of, oh my god, are you going to die, because
That
of
was my
this.
mother's biggest fear. Correct. My
Yeah.
sadly, you know, my father didn't know before he passed. I didn't have the guts to tell him, and you know, and not that I think it would have killed him because I know it wouldn't have. But he was 10
Mhm.
years older than my mom, and just again a different
A
generation.
different generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think
My
about? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say my parents did come around, of course, after that. And by the time dad died, we were so much on a wonderful, relationship together. So I just want to say that out loud.
I'm glad that's awesome for us to hear and for
Yeah.
others to hear. What do you think of what's going on with all these states passing the "Don't Say Gay" bills?
Well, this is my heart space when it comes to what we fight for. We have to choose our battles, and this is has always been mine. For our equal rights, for our being treated fairly, and being able to love ourselves publicly out loud and not hidden. The closet is such a lonely, sad place that to hide the word gay, or to not educate, or to think that if you talk about it, someone's gonna be influenced to become gay. Like
Right.
it's so ridiculous. It's like
Yes.
education is the key to everything, and educate people for what it is. They're not gonna make anybody gay. Like, you are born this way. Like, that's what it is. It's not a choice. Hello. So I've seen so much growth, and most of our country and society is so supportive of who we are. So in that sense, it's wonderful. But sometimes the pendulum has to swing. Like, I think it's going to swing this way, and then it's going to swing way back the other way, because it's just not truth. You can't hide who we are, and there's no reason to. No
We're
one's
not
here to
going
hurt
in it.
anybody.
We're not
No.
going anywhere. We're not going
Yeah.
anywhere. Well, a week from tomorrow kicks off Pride Month.
Yes.
What does Pride mean to you at this stage in your life?
Well, I look at the relationship I'm in, which I'm so proud of. We have so much love in our hearts for each other. John Ritchie Jr. is his name, and as I was sharing with you before we got on the air here, he's a game show producer. He works on $100,000 Pyramid with Michael Strahan, and he's just such a wonderful man. So I'm very proud of the love we share, the life we're building together. It's really just in a groove these days, and I'm proud of that. And I'm when I look back at just our community, I'm proud of the people that we are. And again, one of those things being that sense of the superpower of knowing who we are in the face of whatever opinions there may be about it. It has nothing to do with anyone else's opinions. not our parents, not our church, not our politicians. Really, has nothing to do with anybody. So, I think when I hear of pride, because a lot of people like, oh, we don't have straight pride. Well, you don't need it. That's why we have to still do these pride. I mean, if I have to carry another freaking sign to advocate for our I'm like, here we go again. So, but I'm proud of the life that I've built and the life I'm building with John. So that's pride to me.
That's awesome. Happy almost 1 year anniversary to the two of you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Yay.
Well, it is truly a pleasure to speak with you. Such a pleasure. I'm going to take a photo of the two of us quickly. Here we go.
Okay, sounds good.
Count us down. 1, 2, and 3. Let's make sure our eyes are open. They are.
Did they work? Is it work? So
yeah.
I want to say hello to a few of your fans who have been reaching out to me. Dante reached out to me through Cameo because he saw that we were doing this. He wanted us to talk about Jennifer Slept Here. We didn't actually get to that, but Dante, Jennifer Slept Here with Anne Gillian.
Go right ahead. Yes.
Yeah. Well, just quickly was, I left the last season of One Day at a Time to start Jennifer Slept Here. And it was an incredible experience for me. I have no regrets for doing that. I knew one day was going to be ending, and Jennifer had so many possibilities. We wound up only doing 13, but it was 13 beautiful weeks of my life. I loved it. Georgia Engel was on that show, who I absolutely adored because I was such a Mary Tyler Moore fan. So getting to know
that
Georgia,
had to be incredible for you.
It was so incredible. So getting to know her, and Anne Gillian and I are still friends. We went to lunch with John, just a couple of months ago. So it was so wonderful. So Dante, I just want to say I did hear you, and thank you so much for asking that question because it was an incredible experience.
And I'm glad you said Dante because you reminded me about Mitch, who mentioned Search for Tomorrow. Do you remember anything about your time there?
Yes, Search for Tomorrow and Love of Life. I did both of those shows as a kid, as a guest star. Love of Life, someone recently sent it to me. My friend Mitch on Facebook, a Facebook friend, sent me a DVD of me on Love of Life, and I was with Christian Slater. It was he and I were a guest on Love of Life. But Love of Life and Search for Tomorrow, those were the two that I did as a kid. It's crazy. I have fond memories. I was so young. And one of the things I remembered the most was, oh my God, these people memorize a lot of lines every day.
Yes, they do.
That was my big takeaway. Like, I better get good at this because this is hard.
I wonder, Search might have been where I worked at Guiding Light for a little while on 44th Street, which is no longer a studio. It is now an apartment building.
Really? It's an apartment
if that's where
building.
you were. I don't know if that's where Search was when you were there. It was called Screen Gems. I don't know if that rings a bell.
Yeah, no, I think it was. Definitely.
222 East 44th was where Search, I believe, was.
Yeah.
I think. And I'm not 100%.
My grandmother loved Guiding Light, by the way. You made her very, very happy. She to the day she passed, that was her show. The world stopped for Guiding Light. Let me just say that.
That's the reason I watched it. My mother and grandmother watched it. That's the reason I got hooked and ended up working there.
Wow. Well, that's beautiful.
Did you ever watch soaps?
Oh, yeah. Well, I got to tell you, on the set of One Day at a Time, the first year I went on the show, Valerie was such a General Hospital freak that we would have to stop rehearsing for the hour of General Hospital, and the TV would be rolled in and everyone would watch General Hospital. That was the year of Luke and Laura and Luke and Laura's wedding. It was the year Elizabeth Taylor was on the show and that whole, time frame. And it was a thing. Let me say that. So General Hospital was my go-to over the years. The soap that I watched the most, honestly. But yeah, I watched soaps. It was all the same industry. I knew I had so many friends that were in soaps. So I really had, I had a lot of respect for the work that they did. That's for sure. So I want to just say also, can I say something to two more fans of yours that have reached out to me? Michael Bollinger. Happy birthday. He wrote to me, said, "I know you're going to be on Alan's show. I'm going to watch you on the Locker Room." I said, "Well, I will wish you a happy birthday." And
Oh,
then
that's awesome. Happy birthday, Michael.
Happy birthday, Michael. And Dwight Wise, who loves you,
and Dwight has not stopped asking for you from day since I started.
Thank you, Dwight. Appreciate that, bro. You're so good to me. Yeah, he has so much love and support. I can't even thank him enough. And he sends me. So one of the things that happened to me, I'll share this quickly with you because I know we're going to be going, but my home burned to the ground in 2008 and I lost everything I ever owned. So that meant all my memorabilia, all my pictures, like my One Day at a Time jacket and my fantasy jacket and my NBC jacket, like all that stuff was gone. So over the years, I've collected as much as I can. And it's been quite a lot, actually. And John, my partner, has helped me digitize. There's in the process, because it's a lot, of digitizing so much of it. But Dwight is one of those people that finds me so many things and sends me things. So I really appreciate that part of our friendship. He's always on the lookout for me and sending me cool pictures. And this is why I share so much on Thursdays when I do my Throwback Thursdays, because I just treasure these things so much because I haven't seen them in years and years and years.
I mean, how lucky, that tragedy of your house burning and this internet connecting you with people who can, help bring that back to life for you. That's so special.
It's very, very special. So I appreciate that so much.
Wow. Well, Glenn, I'm going to come out to Sedona sometime.
Sounds good, Alan. And when Johnny and I are in the East Coast, I'll look.
Please do. If you get to New York, absolutely. My husband and I would love to go out for drinks. Absolutely.
That would be awesome. Yeah, no, a trip is coming. That's for sure.
Good. You stay well, my friend. Thank you so much for doing this. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's my pleasure. And thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye, bud.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you to Glenn Scarpelli for joining me today. Don't miss tomorrow's show when singer, songwriter, and father of two, Trey Pearson, joins me live. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. And I hope you all have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow afternoon.